The primary reason I wrote the book was to honor the Marines I served with in Vietnam. More people should know their stories, their incredible dedication, courage, and the sacrifices they made in a war that few supported and even fewer thanked. In Vietnam, as draftees, they served with honor and did everything their country asked of them and more. And I also wanted to describe a realistic picture of life as an infantry rifleman in combat. You're slogging through free fire zones for weeks and months at a time. You're seeking an elusive and lethal enemy, never knowing if someone is an enemy or a friendly. They didn't wear uniforms. It's a war without a front line. We were constantly cold, wet, hungry, and tired. Our resupply would never arrive on time, and we had to ration our food, our ammo, and even our water. We never had any heat tabs to heat up the awful sea rations that were our meals, and we never had any dry socks. And I hate to say it, but every day was pretty much the same. Up at the crack of dawn, trudge for miles to our nighttime positions with about 85 pounds of gear on our backs. You clear areas en route, you set up ambushes, you stay up half the night on watch, and there was many a firefight in between. That is the life of a rifleman in combat. One of those riflemen was Corporal Roy Lee Hammonds of 3rd Platoon Lemur Company, and I'd like to read a passage from my book about Corporal Hammonds. A shot rang out. The men crouched, seeking cover. As if at a signal, 5 or 6 enemy AKs opened up on the far side of the draw, the rapid flat cracks building to a metallic roar as a hail of bullets came in from the right flank and ahead. Our M16s opened up in reply. A thin scream pierced the cacophony, the relentless patter of rain. I'm hit, I'm hit. Corpsman up, the familiar cry of stuff hitting the fan. Take cover, I yelled. This was the ambush I dreaded. I rolled and braced my rifle butt against the ridge on my flak vest and triggered off about a half a magazine towards the incoming fire. I looked downhill and I saw a body between 2 bushes, legs sprawled in a stream. Fire Team 2 leapt up and rushed in short dashes, then dropped to set up a defensive position on the flank. Bullets whipped through the brush and cracked into trees, showering bark and white pulpy wood. The fire team leader collapsed next to me. It's Doc, Lieutenant. They got the Doc. Darn. I measured the distance to the motionless medic around whom impacts were gouting up mud and water. I had our 60 mortars get fire on top of that ridge line. Here, Lieutenant, my radio man handed me the handset. Put artillery on top of the hill and cover me, I yelled, and burst from behind a tree. Projectiles whined past as I dodged down the bank. The wounded man lay prone in the middle of the stream. Our M60 machine guns began hammering away at the ridgeline on the flank. Bullets were geising around Doc, mimicking the smaller impact of the raindrops. When I reached him, the corpsman was hacking and coughing, face smeared with mud. I turned him over. His chest was torn open. Air bubbled deep in the pulpy red mass. Blood ran from his mouth. He tried to say something, but I couldn't make it out. He needed that chest wall sealed quick. A bullet smacked into the creek, spraying us with cold water. That wasn't an AK round. That was a sniper. Hunching my shoulders to stay low, I pressed the gauze rubber pad over the gaping wound, kind of healed that with my left and around the bandage around his torso, half lifting him to pass the roll between his shoulders. As soon as the bandage was tied off, I started pulling him out of the line of fire. At that moment, it felt like a bulldozer hit my back, knocking me down in the stream, tearing my helmet off. My N16 rifle cartwheeled away through the rain. I lay stunned, gazing after it, thinking, I'll be doing a lot of paperwork for losing that rifle. When I realized I could still move, my daze sharpened into an urgent need to scramble for cover. Bullets were whacking all around. My back felt as if someone had whaled at it with a sledgehammer. Blood was dripping from my utilities, yet my brain seemed to be functioning with perfect clarity. We'd been returning fire to the east, but I'd been hit in the back. It was a V-shaped ambush. Lieutenant, my radio man called up from the hill. I yelled back, tell the company commander the enemy's to the north on the other ridge line. I shouted out new coordinates from the laminated map now smeared with my blood. Fire everything we've got and get the gunships. Doc was still upstream, not having moved when the bullet's impact had separated us. And grab Doc, too. I took a deep breath and let it out, listening for the suck and wheeze that meant my lung was pierced, but didn't hear it. Still blood was pouring out, dyeing the clear water scarlet. It was cold. I had to find cover. But I didn't feel like moving. Why not just close my eyes and rest? Then boots pounded, coming my way. Through the rattle and crack of incoming fire, someone was thundering down the slope. The pounding grew louder. Then he cannoned into me like a runner sliding for home, tumbling over me in the stream bed. Someone had come after me. Incredibly brave, incredibly risky. I grabbed his flakjack and yelled, "Let's go, let's go." No answer. My hand came back covered with blood. An unfamiliar, pale, long face fell back. I didn't know him. "I can't move," I yelled, but he didn't respond. Just lay there on top of me, jerking as the bullets hammered his flat jacket. "We've got to get out of here," I said. I grabbed his H harness and pulled him off, began to drag him through the mud and roots and rocks towards the stream bank as the bullets peppered the water around us. Doc, I was worried, might be dying. I realize this now, but maybe I could save this Marine. It seemed to take hours to crawl, dragging the limp, heavy body by the arms to the bank and up a slight rise into the dense foliage. Once into cover, I checked him out. He'd been hit, wasn't breathing. I pressed my mouth to his and began CPR. His lips were slack and cold and tasted of blood. Finally, I sat back on my heels. This Marine was gone, the pallid, stubble cheek slack. Why come after me? Corps discipline didn't demand it. He wasn't even in my platoon. "Lieutenant, you okay?" my radio man yelled, smeared in red mud from head to toe. He crouched right next to me. He was reloading with shaking hands, his barrel steamed, raindrops bubbling as they ran down it. "We're pinned down and we got a bunch of wounded, and the company commander wants a sit rep." I blinked hard, jerking my mind back. The steady rattle of small arms, the shattering roar of artillery working the top of the ridge, louder than I'd ever heard it. We stumbled on at least a regiment. I had to call in more firepower and medevacs. "You're hit, sir, bleeding bad." I fumbled at the first aid kit and stuffed what was left of the gauze into the hole in my back. When I looked down at the Marine's body again, his gray blue eyes were open and seemed to be following me. "You know this Marine?" I asked my radio man. "That's Hammonds, Lieutenant, 3rd Platoon. Tough break. He only had a couple of weeks to go. But you better call in a chopper, get yourself taken care of." I looked around at the dead and wounded, sprawled beside the stream along the ravine. A leaf swayed in the pattering rain. It seemed to be speaking, but in a language I'd forgotten. Why had the kid done it? Sacrificed himself for a stranger, when his own return home had been so near. But then a wounded man began screaming. A salvo came in, 155 artillery by the quaking concussions, and detonated along the crest, shaking rain from the trees. Smoke drifted like bitter incense. But there was something else, too, something important. Then I remembered in a rush, like a wave tearing in and breaking over me. "Move to contact," our regimental commander says, "move out." I forced myself to my knees, then feet, swaying, weak, dizzy, but my legs held up, and after a moment, I could lift a hand. The dead Marine was still looking up at me, wide-eyed, as if he'd asked a question and was still waiting for an answer. My radio man slapped the handset in my palm like an OR nurse presenting a scalpel. "We falling back, Lieutenant?" I took a deep breath, shuddered, and tore my gaze from that unblinking one. Couldn't puzzle things out now, think about it later. "No, Corporal," I said. "Help me get this tourniquet on, have 3rd Platoon consolidate the dead and wounded, and follow in trace. We're going to take this hill so we can get everyone out. No Marine gets left behind."